So you finally made the decision. You want to own some of your own goldfish. But before you go and buy goldfish, you got to buy a lot of supplies. And in this video, I'm going to tell you every little thing that you're going to need and other things you might not need but will make your life easier to start goldfish keeping. So the very first thing you're going to need is a tank, something to hold the water. Now I actually have another video that I did previously that specifically goes into tank size, but just to be quick here and be brief, I'm going to say in general, make it over 20 gallons. If you're going to get 2 fish, which you should, make the tank over 20 gallons, but overall the bigger the better. If you can get a 55 gallon, get that. If you can get a 75 gallon, get that. The bigger the tank, the better. Get the biggest tank you can possibly fit. The next thing you're going to need is a filter. I like to use sponge filters, so I'm going to talk about sponge filters in this video. So you will need to go buy a sponge filter, and the sponge filter is sold separately from the air pump and the hose line. So the first thing filter-wise you need to get is you need to buy the sponge filters, and you need to buy the air pump. And if you buy these air pumps, they come with the hose line. So basically, you need to buy the sponge filter, and then separately you need to buy the air pump. You hook them up together and you get a working filter. And how many sponge filters should you get? Honestly, just load it up. Throw in a ton of sponge filters. The more, the merrier. The more ammonia gets eaten up and the quicker it gets eaten up. So definitely use a ton of sponge filters. The next thing you're going to need is a water heater. Now, for common goldfish, I would say that a water heater is not really necessary, but if you plan on getting wide, fat-bodied goldfish, you really are going to want a water heater. Some people are going to say it's not necessary, but I find if you're going to get fat-bodied goldfish and you live in an area where it might get to the 60s in your house, low 60s, they fare better in the 70s. It's just going to be better for them overall. I would actually say that the water heater is, somewhat necessary. So that's all the absolutely necessary things for the tank. Now I'm going to go into the absolutely necessary supplies. Okay, so in my opinion, these are the 4 absolutely necessary supplies that you're really going to need, and that's about it if you're going at the bare minimum. So the first thing you want to get is beneficial bacteria. If you're starting up a new tank, just don't try to cycle it the normal, natural way. I would say buy some beneficial bacteria, because chances are you're not going to be cycling it the correct way. You're going to throw your fish in there and you're going to have a massive ammonia spike. This stuff really, really helps with boosting that beneficial bacteria and ensuring that that ammonia is getting eaten up in the way it's supposed to very quickly. And the second absolutely necessary thing you're going to need is some water conditioner. I like to use Safe because this comes in a powdered form and this is super cost effective. You buy this thing, this has lasted me like a year and a half so far, and there's still a ton left in there, and I have a lot of tanks even outside as well. Definitely need a water conditioner, or else the chlorine will kill your fish. You absolutely need this. Another thing you absolutely need, you need food. The goldfish need to eat. The feed I like to use is Mizuho goldfish feed. I'm gonna have all these things linked below, but I'll have this linked below also. But this stuff, like when you feed it consistently and you do a lot of water changes, you see some real growth results. Another thing that in my opinion you absolutely should have are some sort of water testing kit. I have testing strips, and I also have this API, much more precise testing kit. Get some sort of water testing kit. You want to have some sort of idea what your water parameters are. So I would definitely say get some strips, get some of this. These strips don't test ammonia, but they do test nitrite, but they don't test ammonia, so know that. Maybe you want to get some separate ammonia strips as well. But this kit tests everything, so I would recommend getting some sort of water testing kit as well, along with those 3 things. Alright, believe it or not, those are all the things that you absolutely need, like in my mind are like an absolute requirement. Now I'm going to go into things that you don't necessarily need to have, but I would recommend having, or that you can just you can choose to have if you want to have it. But a lot of these things, you don't absolutely need them, but they're things that I have, and they're things that I would recommend you having if you want to make things easier or just want to prepare for bad circumstances like sickness. These are those, all right? I'm going to go into them right now. So let's go into some things in the tank that you can get, but you don't need to. So a substrate, I prefer sand. I like sand because you can't really get that much crack that goes through the cracks. Most of it just sits on top, so it's easy to clean. But again, a substrate is not necessary. You don't need one, but you can add it in there if you want, and kind of helps house some more beneficial bacteria. Another thing, lights. In my opinion, you don't need lights, especially if you're near a window. You can open the window, or if you're in a room that's generally bright, you don't absolutely need lights. But if you want to get lights, make your tank look nicer, then yeah, absolutely, you can go buy lights. And if you do buy lights, then you could buy some aquatic plants. You can buy plants. You can buy decorations, but I would say get very smooth and soft decorations. The fatter the fish they are, like these guys, the more clumsy they are, the more fragile they are, the easier it is for them to bump into things and lose their scales. So smooth, non-jagged decorations are okay. Smooth, non-jagged plants are okay. And if you opt into buying some lights, then you can get some plants and they'll survive. Unless the goldfish eat them, which actually they do that a lot. So, it is tough keeping plants, but you can put it in there. That is your choice. But that's other things you could add to the tank if you want: substrate, lights, plants, but you don't necessarily need to. If it's in a super dark room, then maybe, yeah, you do need a light, but if it's in a generally bright room, forget the light. Another thing I highly recommend is a Python water changer. You're gonna need to do water changes. This Python water changer, I have it hooked up to the sink in my bathroom, makes water changes so much easier. I actually have a tutorial on how to use this in one of my previous videos. Also, something you might want, which is not necessary, but I do recommend it, is something to clean the algae off the glass. So if you have lights, that's gonna cause some algae growth. Even if you don't have lights, you're gonna have some sort of algae growth just from other light in the room. And you're gonna want some way to scrub it off. Now, I will say, it's okay to leave it on there. It's not gonna harm the fish. But you're gonna have a tank that just looks green and grimy, and it's not gonna look that nice. But you can leave it on there. If you only care about the fish's health, you can do that. But if you care about the fish's health plus aesthetics, you wanna make it look nice and clean like this one does, then you do wanna get this cleaner tool. This thing actually has a lot of uses. It has like a attachment where you can put on like a little net and use it as a fish net also. But yeah, this thing is pretty nice. I use this to clean up my tanks. Okay, here are a lot of other things that are not absolutely necessary in goldfish keeping, but I would recommend you buy at least some of these. So one of them is this stuff right here. This is actually like a powdered beneficial bacteria, but this is part of the reason why my water stays so nice and clear. Check out how clear my water is. 4 feet through the tank this way, crystal clear all the way through. Not anything of cloudiness in that whole thing. That's because I use this stuff. I do it after every water change. It's meant for ponds, but I use it in my tanks too, and it really just helps keep that water clean. But you don't need to have this. It's not necessary, but I would recommend it if you want to have your tanks just looking cleaner. Now, all the rest of this stuff is more like in the event of an emergency. Actually, except for this thing right here. This thing right here, this reduces nitrates when you go on vacations and you can't do water changes. I like to add some of this in there. It just kind of helps keep the water cleaner a bit longer. But besides that and the beneficial bacteria, everything else is just in the case for sicknesses. So for external sicknesses, or if there's just a fish that's stressed or got harmed, I like to use aquarium salt. I don't use this regularly. I only use it in a case for some sort of harm, trauma, or sickness on the, like mostly external sicknesses. For internal problems, constipation, bloat, swim bladder, all that kind of stuff, I like to use Epsom salt, all right? If you end up buying these, I would recommend you doing your own research on how to use them, but I'm just telling you, this is the things that I use, that I buy for my own fish. So for internal kind of problems, I do like to use this. Again, for a fish that's stressed, or I think this is something stressing them out, I like to put this in there as like a first kind of immediate thing, just kind of reduces that stress, gives them extra slime coat protection, and detoxifies ammonia immediately if I need it. Methylene Blue, this is good for fish eggs, but it's also just good for fungus problems. If you're putting them in the hospital tank and you want to treat for fungus problems, Methylene Blue is good. Malachite Green, actually I have not opened this bottle yet, but I've heard good things from it, and if I possibly get ick, I might use this, but I actually have not opened this bottle yet. I haven't used it yet, but I've heard good things from it, so I thought I'd buy it, put it on the side. Furan 2, great antibacterial. If you had a bacterial problem in the hospital tank, use some Furan 2. General Cure, you can use this in the main tank because it does not harm biofiltration. Great for parasites. Parasites are super common in goldfish. This stuff works well. This stuff, good against ick. That's all I gotta say. Kanaplex. This thing is an antibacterial and antifungal. Also something you can use in a tank, so it's nice you don't necessarily have to move to a hospital tank. If you got a whole tank problem, you can treat all at once. A bit expensive, you know, this whole thing is kind of a little expensive, but it works well. But these are all like the little hospital emergency things that I have. Now you don't need to get this, but if you want to reduce the risk of losing your fish if they get sick, I would recommend, you know, making your own little, being your own little fish pharmacist and getting all the little things that I have here. You don't maybe need all of them, but I'd recommend getting some of them. Alright, so a little recap. In the first half of the video, I went through the necessary things you need for your tank and the necessary products. And then in the second half of the video, I went through optional things you can have for your tank, like lights or, you know, a substrate. And then I also went through optional things you could have, like such as products, you know, like your medications, your salts, and, you know, your little water additives to make it cleaner and, you know, more clear. So everything in the first half of the video, I would say absolutely you have to get that. A lot of the things in the second half of the video, you could get away with keeping goldfish perfectly fine. They're going to live nice, long, healthy lives without. But it might help you out to get them, especially the Python water changer. I can't stress enough how much I like that thing. Now, the thing is, you don't need it. You can easily keep goldfish a long time without it, but I recommend it. That's probably my favorite product out of everything here. The Python water changer is like the lifesaver. But yeah, that's the whole video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm going to have links to all these things below, or as much as I can. I'm going to have links below in the description so you can buy these things if you want to buy them for yourself. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Luke's Goldies out.